We have at the first table 7 speakers, and I would like to start with the Willy Brandt table, with Jan Marinus Wiersma, who is a former member of parliament. Well, there is no need, I think, to turn around because it's here. Thank you. To give us a bit the kind of experience, because he's also heading the European Forum for Solidarity and Freedom, to give us a picture, in a sense, what is the situation currently, what is the situation also concerning the enlargement process, and then we can continue with the other speakers. Please, Jan Marinus, it's up to you.
Thank you very much. Does it work? I hope so, yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. I want to thank you also and FEPS for the good cooperation we have as a European Forum on a big project where we're trying to reassess the enlargement process and come up with proposals on how to continue and how to reinvigorate the process. We do it together also with the S&D group, and we will publish a book later this year. This week we invited 20 young people from the Balkans to be here to work with us, and a number of them are present here, so I would like to welcome them especially. If you look, let me first we talk about the Western Balkans. Let me make one remark about Turkey, because there are also people here who are interested in Turkey. I think that we should try to find ways to move the agenda of the relations between Turkey and the European Union. I'm not sure whether the way negotiations are being undertaken with Turkey and the fact that they have halted is the best way. I was in Turkey and I have the impression that this country doesn't want to be treated like the EU is treating other candidate countries, that they do not accept the way the European Union is dealing with them. This is the only remark I want to make. I think we have to think very cleverly how we can reinvigorate also the process of a stronger cooperation with Turkey, but I don't know whether the negotiations model of the EU is the best one. Then back to the Balkans and to the state of the accession process. I think first of all we have to note that this accession process is somewhat different from the earlier ones. The accessions that led to the negotiations that led to the enlargements of 2004 and 2007. This has to do with, of course, the situation in the region and the background of the problems of the region. The fact that while the others were negotiating, starting to negotiate, the other former communist countries with the European Union, there were conflicts and violent wars in the region. And so they actually missed the enlargement boat in the 90s of the last century and the beginning of this century. I think that's an important point to make. And some of these problems that were then leading to violent conflict, of course, still haunt the region. I think it's important that we are aware of the fact that there are some special political problems that I think have to be solved before you can conclude accession negotiations with the candidates there or the potential candidates. The most important one is, I think, the issue of Kosovo and the status of Kosovo, where the EU has an internal problem because 22 member states recognize Kosovo, 5 don't. But we have to also find internally a way, I think, to be able to deal better with the situation in Kosovo and the status issue. A second persistent issue is, of course, the fragility of Bosnia-Herzegovina, where you still cannot speak of a full functioning state, and only a full functioning state, of course, will be allowed to join the European Union. And of course, we also know about the issues related to Macedonia and the name issue. So the region itself has a number of problems that we didn't find or were not confronted with in the earlier enlargement rounds. And secondly, I think this region also is still suffering from the after effects of the sanctions regime on the Yugoslavia of Milosevic. This has had an enormous impact also on the development of a black market of criminal circuits that are still there and creating problems, not only in Serbia, but further down in the region also. Secondly, there has been a change, of course, in the position of the European Union. When I remember in 2000 and 2001, when we were negotiating with the 10 and the 2, there was a strong commitment of the European Union, of the European Parliament, of everybody to make this a success. There was political pressure to move forward. There were deadlines and dates, and there was, like I said, a strong political commitment to make it a success. This situation does not exist anymore. The EU has become much more hesitant, partly based on the lessons learned from the 2004 and 2007 enlargement, partly based on the changes of public opinion inside the European Union, maybe also partly based on the fact that we have to deal with different publics in the remaining candidate countries. And we saw already in 2006 that the European Council introduced a much stronger conditionality on the negotiations, much more emphasis on rule of law issues, much more emphasis on the capacity of candidates to really implement the acquis, to show track records on that. And recently this conditionality has been further strengthened by the decision of the Council and the Commission to start new negotiations in the future. First with the so-called chapters 23, 24, meaning that first we have to deal with the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, the freedom of the media, the fight against corruption, before we can start really dealing with the other chapters. So also that is, I think, a change in the way the EU is dealing with the enlargement issue. We've seen in the case of Croatia, indeed, that especially these chapters 23 and 24 meant that these talks took much longer than we thought. But on the other hand, I think Croatia is better prepared to join the European Union than some of the candidates that joined in 2004 and 2007, meaning especially on these issues related to Articles 23, 24. Let me then, because I don't want to be too long, I think that we have to make a kind of double deal. One deal of the EU with the region should be that we should make more efforts as European Union to try to find solutions to these political problems I mentioned. Because without these political problems being solved, I don't think there will be support within the European Union to take in Serbia or to take in Macedonia or to take in Bosnia-Herzegovina, no second Cyprus. That's what I feel, because in the case of Cyprus we allowed a country to join that has a big internal problem, which we hope would be solved, but is still not solved. But from our side, we should really invest more politically in helping to overcome these political problems. I think we should then, in the same, on the basis of this double deal, also explain to the candidate countries, the remaining candidate countries, that we support a stricter conditionality, that we are also convinced that we have to invest more in the preparedness to join the Union, also to avoid what we saw in the case of Romania and Bulgaria, that we have to continue actually negotiating after they have become member. But it also means that in these countries, the political elites, the public opinion, really has to support the process, has to develop the necessary consensus to introduce the reforms that are sometimes painful for the population, but of course also for the political elites. And that we indeed should make sure that situations that we have seen recently in Serbia should not be repeated, where we had a pro-European government that did a good job, still a lot to be done, and a president was elected who, upon election day, started to say that Srebrenica was not a massacre. I think this is really a situation where politicians like him really create a very bad atmosphere, and it's not helpful, of course, for the further development, also in this case, of our relations with Serbia, and we hope that by the end of the year there will be a decision, hopefully still, to start negotiations on membership with this country. So basically what we have been trying to do also in the framework of this project is to evaluate where we are, to assess the process as a whole, to look at the lessons learned from earlier accessions, but also lessons learned by new member states who have a lot to tell about their experiences, and that we do this not to block the process and not to have a narrow mind on the enlargement process, but to make it better and to reinvigorate it. Thank you.